What is up, you guys? I'm JustGreene, and in this video I'm going to be showing you this 2022 Hyundai Elantra. So if you're in the market for a fuel efficient, stylish, reliable compact sedan that will get you from point A to point B, is this the one you should be looking at? That's what we'll find out. So let me just start off by saying that this vehicle is in its 7th generation now. And yes, this vehicle has been through 7 generations. The Elantra has been around since 1990, and this is supposed to compete in that compact sedan market. So it competes against cars like the Toyota Corolla, the Honda Civic, and even its own sister vehicle, the Kia Forte, and many others. So now we're going to see what's been changed for 2022 and how does this compete against its class offerings. So now let's talk about our particular model that we have here. So this one is the SEL trim level, so it's a level above the base model. And let's just go over all the trim levels that you get with this 2022 Elantra. So first off is the SE, which starts at an MSRP of $19,950. Next is the SEL with an MSRP of $21,000. Then you have the N line with an MSRP of $24,350. And then finally the Limited with an MSRP of $25,700. And as for your color choices, you have a pick between silver, gray, black, white, red, and blue. And then if you go for the N line or Limited, you also have an additional orange color. So if you want that orange color, you're gonna have to go for at least the N line to get that. So our particular model is the gray color, and I find it looks really nice on this vehicle. Definitely shines nicely out here with the hot sun in Texas. So as I walk up to this 2022 model, you can see that it's basically a carryover from last year's major refresh in terms of the styling. So you do continue with these very aggressive body lines going across the hood. I like how it flows nicely into that massive grille we have. It's blacked out and it has like this honeycomb design to it. I believe this grille is also finished in chrome if you go for the SCL and Limited models. But I will say I do like the way this black on gray color combination looks. And I find that having a license plate in front of this grille here does kind of take away the aggressiveness that it gives off. So if you really want to showcase that massive front grille, you might want to do away with the license plate if your state allows that, of course. And something else you'll notice is that the Hyundai badge is no longer on the face of the grille, as some of you might remember from the previous design. It's now positioned on the hood of the car. And as we come over here to the headlights, these are standard LED across all the trim levels. So they're LED daytime running lights and LED projector lights. And I like how this also flows nicely into the massive grille on the front. And then as we come towards the bottom, you can see that we do have functional air vents down here. So they're actually doing something regarding the aerodynamics of this car, and they're not just there to add to the aesthetics like you might find on some other vehicles. And I also like this black trim here that goes across the vehicle that's underneath the grille. Definitely does add to the nice black touches that you'll find on this particular model. And of course, this will also be finished in chrome to match that chrome grille. So we've talked about the aggressive front end, but now let's take a look at the side profile of this car. And as you can see, this has a really geometrical kind of look to it. Definitely a departure from the more curvy, streamlined look of the previous generation. You're not going to mistake this car for anything else on the road, other than Hyundai and Kia's own vehicles, of course. This is part of their new design language that's shared between both of these sister companies, and it's definitely an acquired taste. Especially if you're someone who's coming from the previous generation, you're going to be surprised by how much this one stands out. And in terms of the dimensions, Hyundai has made this all-new Elantra 4 inches longer than the previous generation, so it's about 184.1 inches long, and the wheelbase has also been extended by about 1 inch versus the previous generation. So in terms of length, this all-new Elantra is really closing the gap between itself and Hyundai's own Sonata and just mid-size offerings in general, as these compact cars keep getting bigger and bigger. Now let's see what we're working with in terms of our features for the 2022 model year. And now coming up to the mirrors, they are power adjustable across all the trim levels. They have an LED turn signal built in. You can choose to make them heated on the SEL trim level, and that's standard on the Limited. And they do feature blind spot monitoring across all the trim levels. And now coming down to the wheels, as you can see, this particular model is blacked out. Again, they are going to be finished in chrome to further match those chrome accents if you went with the Limited. As for the size of these, I believe this is the 16-incher, but you also have a choice of a 17-incher on the SCL. And then if you go for the Limited, you have a 17-incher as standard. Lastly, for the exterior, I'd like to talk about the gas cap, and this is located on the driver's side of the vehicle. As for the fuel capacity, this gas tank holds 12.4 gallons of fuel. Alright, so as we walk towards the rear of this vehicle, you can see that we have more triangles. Those geometrical body lines do continue back here. And again, which is definitely a departure from the previous generation. We've never seen an Elantra like this before. But taking a closer look, if you look above the Hyundai badge, you can see your backup camera. That's standard on every model. You can also see that we have Elantra spelled across the back here. Definitely a nice touch. And as for the tail lights, they go across the tailgate, much like the black trim on the front end of the vehicle underneath the grille. I believe these taillights are a combination of both LED and incandescent, except the end line and limited, so the accent lighting is LED, but everything else, including the turn signal, the reverse lights, and the brake lights, are all incandescent. However, if you go for the end line or limited, everything back here becomes LED. Down here you have not exposed exhaust tips unless you go for the end line. It also blends in with this black accenting across the back bumper. And you've also got these reflectors above those exhaust tips. Alright, so let's take a look at the trunk space of this Elantra. So to open it manually, just press the black button under the Hyundai badge, and that should open right up. It's nice and lightweight to open. Now, this is not a power lifting tailgate, but it does have smart entry access on every trim but the base model. So in terms of the space back here, you get about 14.2 cubic feet of space. So that's about a cubic foot bigger than something like the Toyota Corolla. It's on par with the Honda Civic, but its sister vehicle, the Kia Forte, is a little bit bigger, adds 15.3 cubic feet of space. So it's definitely on par with its competitors. Now if you get the premium package, you do get the ability to fold the back seats down to allow for more cargo room. That's optional with the premium package for the SEL trim level. It's standard on the N line and the limited, but it's not available on the base trim level. So just keep that in mind if you're wanting to store some big items back here. You will have to spend more for the premium package in order to get that feature. So now I'll just close this back, and let's see what we have under the hood for this 2022 Elantra. Alright, so when you open the hood of the 2022 Elantra, you're going to be greeted by a 2-liter inline-4 engine. This makes 147 horsepower with 132 pound-feet of torque. This is mated to their intelligent variable transmission. Now unfortunately, I couldn't find a 0 to 60 time for this particular model, but if I had to take a guess, I'd say it'd probably do 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds. But again, if you want that faster acceleration, you'll have to go with the N-line model. That one has a 1.6 liter inline-4 turbocharged engine putting out 201 horsepower. And there's also a hybrid powertrain for this vehicle, but I will save that for a future video. Now as far as MPGs go, this is rated at 31 in the city, 41 on the highway, and 37 combined driving. So these numbers are pretty much on par with its class offerings. This gets higher numbers than the current Nissan Sentra, this gets higher numbers than the current Mazda 3. However, something like the new Honda Civic is rated a little bit higher than this. And lastly, I'll also add that you can actually get a manual transmission, although I do believe that most people in America are probably still going to go with the standard automatic transmission. But regardless, some of you might be happy that a manual transmission still exists, so definitely check this one out. If you're someone who's still into manuals, you definitely want to go with the N line, no question about that. Alright, so walking up to the 2022 Elantra, this is the key fob that comes with the vehicle. It's a pretty nice looking key fob. You have pretty basic features here. You do have an additional tailgate button to open the tailgates, which is definitely nice. And overall, it's a pretty nice looking key fob. It has a nice feel in the hand. So as I'm approaching the vehicle, you could of course just use the key fob, or you can press the button on the door handle to unlock it. This button kind of feels like hard plastic, and it makes a little beep. That lets you know that you've unlocked the vehicle. So taking a first look inside this car, you can see it's pretty much left unchanged. And that makes sense because this was totally redesigned for last year. And taking a look at the driver's seat, it is manually adjustable. If you want power adjustable seats, you will have to go for the premium package or the limited trim level. Otherwise, you get this two-way manually adjustable driver's seat. But before we get in depth with the interior, I want to talk about the door panel. So as you can see, it's a pretty attractive looking panel. You can see we have this nice metal looking speaker grille. Definitely reminds me of something you'll find in a Genesis product. As far as the materials though, it is hard touch plastic on the top. You have some nice stitching in the middle here. This whole panel is in like this gray color to match our gray interior. You've also got a decent sized storage bin towards the bottom. So overall, pretty nice door panel here. And I'll go ahead and get inside the vehicle and close the door. and the door sounds nice and solid when you close it. That just overall adds to the impression of quality. But coming back to the door panel, you have one-touch auto up and down controls for the windows. You've also got these arrows to control your power mirrors, so as you can see, I'm doing that right now. And this is a standard feature you'll find on every Elantra. Now, something I'll add when you're stepping in here is that if you're a taller person, I will say that you have to duck your head quite a bit. But then again, this is a sedan and it is quite low to the ground. You're definitely going to feel that if you're somebody like me who is coming from an SUV. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, once you're in here, you can see you have pretty nice looking design elements. But now I'm just going to go ahead and start the vehicle. And then Hyundai puts the push to start button right over here. And as you can see, right away, you're going to notice this pretty massive 10-inch gauge cluster. This is only available if you add in the convenience package for the SEL, and it's standard on the Limited. Now, when you look at this display, it looks to be really high resolution, so the graphics are nice and crisp. It's not pixelated or anything like you might find on some other vehicles. Information is very easy to read here. You've got a traditional speedometer on the left, and you got your tachometer on the right. Now, these gauges are not customizable. I would have preferred to have the tachometer on the left like most modern vehicles, but it's something I can get used to. But what you can customize is what you see here in the center. So you have 4.2 inches of leeway for any information you choose to put it on, and this whole gauge cluster can actually change to different themes and colors depending on what drive mode you select. So you've got normal, you've got smart, and you've got a sport mode. So those all have a pretty nice animation whenever you switch between those modes on this digital display, which is really nice. Overall, this 10-inch screen is really nice to find in a vehicle of this class. Now on the upper dash, it's mostly made of soft touch plastic. And then right here, we have what literally looks like it's supposed to be a speaker grill, but this doesn't actually do anything. I'm guessing that's just there to add to the look. We have more soft touch plastic across the dashboard, which is definitely nice. And then on the left here, this doesn't actually do anything. This is literally just a placeholder for aesthetics. Honestly, I think they could have added some more functionality there, maybe a couple buttons for the gauge cluster. Both of these levers have a nice quality feel to it. And coming to the steering wheel is wrapped in leather. It feels nice in the hand. It's got this 4-spoke design to it. This steering wheel is manually adjustable, so no, it does not have power capability. I personally don't mind that for the price point. As for the buttons, you have some controls to switch between different series of information on the gauge cluster. So you've got a plethora of different pages of information to put it on. This is all really nice and modern, and this is just basically a lot of what we've already seen with Hyundai's latest vehicles. And again, this is all very nice to have in a budget-friendly vehicle. And one last thing I'll mention here is that you do have a cruise control mode. Obviously, that's only going to work when the vehicle is in motion. And over here, you have some controls for what I believe is supposed to control like the brightness of the gauge cluster and your traction control. And you have a blank switch on the top right, so I'm not sure what it could be, but that's just something I wanted to point out. And now let's move over to the infotainment system. And this is a standard 8-inch screen across all the models. But if you go for the Limited, they'll get you an additional 10.25-inch screen. So Hyundai offers some of the biggest infotainment systems you'll find in the class, and I think that's really impressive considering that's something you usually find on luxury-oriented vehicles. Now, as far as what you'll find here on this 8-inch display, it does offer wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay, and if you were to go for the Limited with the 10.25-inch display, Hyundai only offers that with wired Android Auto and wired Apple CarPlay, so you don't get wireless capability there, so just keep that in mind. Now, as far as the sound system, I unfortunately was not able to find hard specs for my particular tester, but I will say my tester does not have the best sound system you can get for this vehicle. The best sound system you can get is the Bose 8-speaker premium audio system that comes with the premium package, and that's standard on the Limited, and this is the best sound system that you can get. Now, as far as the operating system we have on our infotainment, this is Hyundai's Blue Link system, so this is basically the standard user interface that comes built into the infotainment system if you choose not to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And I will say it is very easy and intuitive to use. Everything is very nicely laid out. It's got a map system built in, and I think Hyundai and Kia make some of the best infotainment in the auto industry. Below that, you will find a hazard button, which sits on top of the AC vents. And I think this looks really classy. Looks like something you would find in a more expensive vehicle. And coming down here to our HVAC system, or more commonly the climate control. This is the standard dual zone automatic system on every trim but the base model. And you've also got a control for heated seats. This comes with the convenience package. It's standard on the limited trim level. And then below that, you have a 12-volt outlet, some USB connections, and you've got a pretty big spot here for a cell phone. This actually has a wireless charging pad built in. This is part of the premium package, and it comes standard on the limited. And as we come back out here, you can see the shifter is nicely wrapped in leather, feels nice in the hand. As far as the gearbox, you can also shift it to the left to use it as a manual through simulated gear changes. It also has an electronic parking brake, which is located right here on the panel. Now if we go into reverse, you can see we have this backup camera with active trajectory. As you can see, when I turn the steering wheel, these guidelines will follow the direction that I'm steering at to better help me understand what I'm reversing into. Now as far as the resolution here, I'd say it's acceptable. It's not the sharpest I've seen, but I've definitely seen worse in the segment. But this is definitely adequate considering the price point of this vehicle, and I'm happy to report that Hyundai even included this backup camera on even the base Elantra. So really nice that they did that. Now as far as the glove box, it is hard touch plastic and it's not dampened. You've got a pretty decent amount of space in here. It's what you would expect. And as you can see, you've got an owner's handbook and some other paperwork in there. So let's close that back. And coming to the center console, you'll see we have two cup holders here. I've got a water bottle right there, and they're nicely sized for some other types of cups you might want to put there. And so far, I'm really impressed by the premium feel of this cabin. Again, this is the gray cloth interior. You've got some nice white stitching on the seats. And then coming to the center console, this storage space is pretty deep. You could probably fit a lot of coupons in here if you're somebody who loves coupons. It's nicely lined with felt at the bottom. No USB port in here, which is kind of surprising. I kind of expected that. And then coming up here, you have a basic rear view mirror. It looks pretty nice with those slim bezels. You can see my face right there. Of course, you got illuminated vanity mirrors and sliding sun visors on each side of the vehicle. Just typical stuff you find on every car. And the lights is actually located in front of the sun visor, as you can see right here. Over here you have the center light housing, and lastly you have an emergency SOS button that's also linked to Hyundai's BlueLink system. And now let's step into the back seat of the all-new Elantra, and you can see we have that same white stitching that we saw on the front seats. And as far as passenger room back here, this is actually one of the largest you'll find in the segment, which I think is really impressive, and you can thank the extended wheelbase for that. As for the door panel materials back here, they're not as nice as the front. You do a little bit of cost cutting back here. You've also got normal adjustable windows as well as a few storage compartments. Now as far as legroom figures in this vehicle, you have 42.3 inches of legroom in the front, and you have 38 inches of legroom back here. So in terms of the backseat legroom, this is more than what you'll find in the rest of the competition. This has more backseat legroom than its sister vehicle, Kia Forte. And it's on par with Hyundai's own Sonata, which is surprising again because this is marketed as a compact sedan. So very impressive backseat legroom overall. Now as far as the materials, you do have hard touch plastic behind the front row seats, which is what you would expect for this class of vehicle. Also, no backseat pockets and no power sunroof is available on this particular model. You'd have to add in the premium package or go with the limited. You have some nice stitching behind the seat, and then as you can see, no connectivity in the center console, no storage compartments either, and you do have a hump in the center, which can be quite cumbersome if you have 3 passengers back here, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. And this one also doesn't get the center armrest with cup holders like you would find in the higher trim levels. Alright, so we've officially reached the end of this video, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get a driving impressions on the 2022 Elantra, mainly because my particular model that I tested was sold to a customer that same day. So to be fair, I didn't really want to put any extra miles on their brand new vehicle, as I believe when you're a customer buying a brand new vehicle off the lot, the dealer shouldn't allow anyone to test drive it. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the 2022 Hyundai Elantra, and if you did, please consider leaving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that, and I certainly hope you guys found this video helpful. But if you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.